So for today, we're getting ready for a graphing test that's coming up on Tuesday of next week, and I wanted to do a bunch of practice problems with y'all. So, do you remember what these three graphs look like? Absolute value, squared, and square root. You don't really have to memorize them because you can make an XY chart, but you really ought to know what they look like. I mean, that's what we've graphed over and over for like 3 days. Do you know the parent graph? I'm going to pause for a second, and you're going to make a quick sketch of those three, and you're going to compare them with that kid I always pair you with. These first two rows straight across from each other, these two rows straight across. You're going to have to do double duty today because he's only got him, so check with him and him. And then you two in the back corner. All right. Make a quick sketch of the parent graphs and compare them. All right, you should have known that this one is a V shape, so it looks kind of like that. This one's a parabola shape, so it's more like a U shape. And this one starts here and goes forever that way, but there's a big difference with arrows on both ends and this. This one has a hard stop at 0, 0. Why? Because you can't put in a negative and do square roots of negatives unless you're going to do imaginary numbers. All right, so then if I asked you what the domain and range just of this one is, what's the domain of this one and what's the range of this one? Pause for a second while you try to remember domain and range. The answers involve like negative infinity, parentheses, commas, brackets. Once again, would you please compare with the kid next to you? You really need to do that. If I have to, I'll come over and make you guys talk to each other, but just talk. You guys in the front already talk? Okay, what'd you guys get? 0 to infinity. Is there a bracket or a parenthesis on the 0? Bracket, because it can touch 0 very good. And would you tell me the range?
Bracket, 0, infinity.
You got it. Okay, good. So that's domain and range. Here's the next topic that you could be tested on. Y equals negative 8 parentheses x minus, 2x minus 3 parentheses plus 7. Now, there's horizontal changes, things like stretches and shrinks. Remember, you can't trust the inside. You can't trust the order of the inside. You can't trust what you think is happening. The inside is the horizontal, though, and the vertical is the outside. Tell me what things in what order. So there's 2 things here, and there's 3 things here. Remember, you can trust the outside, so it's the normal PEMDAS kind of order. On the inside, you can't trust anything. I'll pause. We give that a shot. So what'd you get for the horizontals? There's 2 things, and then we'll try to make sure they're in the right order.
Right 3 and shrink by factor 1.
Right 3 is correct, and it is first. I know it seems like multiply should be first. So that's why it's not first, because you're on the inside where you don't trust it. And then you said horizontal shrink. What did you say the factor was?
1/2.
You are correct. A lot of people are going to mess that up, but I think, I don't know, sensing a lot of confidence in your faces. How many people had that one right? Sweet. Then there's 1, 2, and 3 here. On the outside, you could have done the vertical reflect first. Or you could have, because it's part of the same number here, you could have done the vertical stretch BFO 8. Either one of those could be first. And the last thing is up 7. And that's the easy part because it just goes the way you would expect. All right. So then use this same function and find me 3 points on it. because if you had to graph this, there's no way in heck you'd want to graph the original and then do those 5 stretches and moves, and oh my gosh, that'd be almost impossible. So instead, you're going to pick a point for x, anything you want, stick it in, and I'm going to say we're also going to square it, but you know what? This is going to be just a little too brutal. So I'm going to make this 8 change to a small number, because otherwise my answers are going to be huge. I'm just going to put a negative in the front. No 8, just a negative, okay? And I did put a squared on it now. So I should have had a squared there the whole time, but make sure that you have one there. Yes?
Would vertical flip be different than a vertical reflect?
Yeah, a flip is just the slang way to say it. So try to remember reflect. If the only thing that was wrong in your whole thing was you said flip instead of reflect, I might be able to overlook it. But it's kind of like part wrong. And if you do anything else, I'm going to have to be like, nope, see, you had this wrong and this wrong. So try to remember the official way to say it is reflect. All right, Tate, can you tell me a number that you stuck in? 0 is a good call because that becomes 0, and at least part of it got easy. And now negative 3 squared is 9. Then I make it negative 9 plus 7. Did you get negative 2? Correct. Then you can put in other things, like maybe something close to 0. Since 0 worked, pick something close to 0, like 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. Then you make it negative again, so it's negative 1 plus 7 is 6. Who had 1 comma 6? All right. If you did, and if you put in 1 and you didn't get 6, double check yourself because something went wrong. Now I'm going to put in 2. 2 is going right there. Now I have 2 times 2 is 4, minus 3 is 1. 4 minus 3 is 1. 1 squared is 1. Make it negative. Negative 1 plus 7, 6 again. You can have the same thing come out. Yes, that's legal. In fact, it's expected on a parabola. You got one vertex of the parabola, and then from there you'll have lots of points that like mirror each other. You know what I mean? Like, if it's a parabola, there's going to be lots of things that have the same height, the same y value, you know? All right, so then I've just got 3 points. On the test, you will need 5, but I'm trying to go faster here, so I'm just going to graph these 3 points, 0, negative 2, 1, 6, and 2, 6. I'm double checking that. 1, 2, 1, yep, 2, yep, it's correct. All right, double checking my 0, negative 2. Negative 3 squared is 9, that's negative 9. Yep, those are all correct. Man, looks weird. So let me just make sure I understand what's happening here. How on earth could that be right? Because it goes like that. It's an upside down parabola, right? All right, so I found the 3 blue ones, and it just didn't seem right at all. But if you fill in a few more dots, remember how I said you want 5 points? And now I got 5 by putting in those 2 green ones. You can see it goes like that. Okay, and then the last thing is piecewise functions. So we're going to do one together as a group, and then you're going to have a bunch of work time. And it's really critical at that time is if you are struggling with something that you bring it up and you ask me. There is not a key, and I think some of my colleagues and I feel differently about the key, so I'm going to have to go with them sometimes. In this case, I think they feel like that would be too much like a homework assignment where and we want to make sure it's really clear. We're not giving you any homework over the weekend. So bottom line is you won't have a key up because it's not really a homework assignment. It's practice problems in class. And then the key will go up on Monday. I'll make sure, if nothing else, I make a key and stick it up on Monday when you can look at it when it's more like a homework assignment. Okay, so back to a piecewise. F of x, write this one down, please, equals. Well, sometimes it's x squared minus 3. That's a parabola that's been moved down 3. Sometimes it's the absolute value of x plus 2, and that's a absolute value that's been shifted to the left 2. And sometimes it's just 2x, which is a line that goes really steep, has a slope of 2, and it touches 0, 0 as its y-intercept. Okay, so I'm going to say it's this shifted down parabola between -2 and 2. But notice, it doesn't own the endpoints because there's no or equals. On the right side of the graph, where x is bigger or equal to 2, it's this graph. And on the left side of the graph, where x is less than or equal to -2, that's the left side of the graph, it looks like that. You will need 3 separate XY charts. And do this carefully. Now you might feel lulled into like thinking, okay, I was fine until this one. This is the one kind I don't understand. But if you go into the test that way, I'm warning you, there's like 4 of these. You gotta know how to do these. So if you don't get it, you've gotta ask me today and get it down. Because just those other stuff I talked about, that's little pieces of the test. This is the bulk of the test, is piecewise graphing, because it's the most complicated thing and you're in precalc, trying to make it not like a super cake test. All right, so if you don't understand this, get some help. I'm gonna pause for a minute while you make 3 XY charts. And you graph this piecewise function. All right, one of the things that are really important to remember is, where are the parentheses? There weren't any, but wherever there's a variable, there's little parentheses around that variable that you don't see. And when you drop in your number, it goes in those parentheses. So there's even a little parenthesis right there. And you drop in your variable in that number, or your number. So like I'm gonna stick -2 in here. And I'm going to be careful because -2, it does not own that spot. So I'm going to put not. But we go right up to it and we put an empty circle there. So -2 squared is 4. 4 minus 3 is 1. Who had -2 comma 1? You were correct. So if I graph that, -2 comma 1, there's an empty circle right there. Okay. Now, I'm going to put in -1 and 0 and 1 and 2, and that other end, +2, it doesn't own that either, so I'm going to write not. So if I put in -1, I'll do these kind of fast in my head. -1 squared is 1, 1 minus 3 is -2. If I put in 0, I get -3. If I put in +1, I get -2 again. And if I put in +2, I get +1. All right, so now I'm going to graph that quick. -1, -2 means it goes down here. 0, -3, down a little lower. 1, -2, starting to come back up. 2, +1. Doesn't that look like a little parabola? It does to me. And then it's empty on the end there, though, so I better be careful with that. Just like it was empty on the left side, it's empty right there. So empty here, empty there. And let me erase out those little marks just to make it a little more clear. Okay. All right, so there's my beginning. I have the bottom part of a parabola that's been shifted down 3. That all makes sense. Next, I'm going to stick in 2 and 3 and 4 in this function, and it doesn't seem to stop, so I can keep putting in numbers all I want. 2, when put in this function, becomes absolute value of 4, which is 4. So over 2 up 4. So it starts right there with a solid dot right above the empty dot. And that was 2 comma 4. It'll be 3 comma 5 and 4 comma 6. So that's just going up at a nice normal slope of 1, and it goes like that. And then last but not least is this part of my graph. That's supposed to be a steep, straight line. And that's where it's less than or equal to -2. Here's -2. That was where there was an empty spot right here. Okay, so I stick -2 in and I get -4. -2, -4 goes down here and puts a dot. And then if I put in like -3, I got to put in smaller and smaller numbers. If I put in -3, I get -6. If I put in -4, I get -8. So -3, -6. And this just looks like it's a fairly steep line. We're used to going from left to right, but this one doesn't go any further to the right because otherwise it wouldn't pass the vertical line test. Like some kids just keep going like this. Can't do that because now I'm in the red zone, you know, I'm not allowed to be in there. This passes the vertical line test here and there, and so yay, there's your piecewise function. How many of you feel confident that you got piecewise down? All right, and if you don't, you need to come up and ask me for help. So there's some practice problems, that's all it is. I honestly don't want you to have to do anything this weekend. When you walk out of the room today, you can just forget about math for the weekend, and then we'll hit it again hard on Monday, review Monday, test Tuesday. All right, that's all I got for you for today.